Let's be honest. We're all swimming in this non-stop river of information, right? Content is coming at us from every direction, every single second. So, the big question is, how in the world do you tell what's real and what's not? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the powerful tools Google has actually built to help all of us find credible, trustworthy information online.
Okay, let's take a quick trip down memory lane. Do you remember when getting an answer meant hauling a massive, heavy encyclopedia off the bookshelf? Yeah, information used to be a physical thing, something you could hold. You had to wait for the morning paper or the 6 o'clock news to get your updates.
Now fast forward to today. That encyclopedia? It's the search bar. The morning paper? It's an infinite scroll on your phone that never, ever ends. Everything is instant. It's right there at your fingertips. And this huge shift from having just a few sources to having way too many is really the core challenge we're all dealing with.
And all of this creates something our source material calls the information vortex. You know that feeling, right? You have access to literally everything, but somehow getting a clear answer feels harder than ever. It's that paradox of more is less.
And this is where the vortex gets really dangerous. This quote kind of says it all. It is so easy to get swept up in a sea of misinformation. And here's the kicker. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's just a mistake, published unintentionally. But look, whether it's deliberate or just an error, the result is exactly the same. It makes it that much harder to figure out what's true.
So, when did this problem really explode? When did it go from just being some background noise to a blaring alarm bell? Well, a few major global events really dialed up the pressure and showed us just how risky all this misinformation could be.
First, you had the Trump era, where the term fake news suddenly became part of our everyday conversations. Then the pandemic hit, and suddenly misinformation wasn't just political, it was about life and death. But the real tipping point, according to our source, was the war in Ukraine, where fake reports and bad data just spread like wildfire.
This whole crisis really demanded a serious response. And this is the moment in our story where Google decides to step in, not just as a place to search, but as a major player in this fight against misinformation.
In fact, reacting to that wave of false narratives around the Ukraine war, Google's CEO Sundar Pichai announced a pretty huge investment, $10 million, all of it dedicated to fighting the misinformation about that specific conflict.
But, this wasn't just about throwing a bunch of money at the problem. Google's strategy was way smarter. They partnered with experts on the ground, they funded fact-checking groups. But the most important part for you and me is that last one. They started building brand new features directly into their search tools, designed to empower every single one of us.
So, that brings us to the really practical part of all this, your toolkit. Let's walk through the exact features Google has rolled out that you can start using like right now to become a much smarter, more critical thinker online.
All right, tool number one, and honestly, this might be the most powerful one, is called About This Result. Think of it like a quick background check for any website you see in your search results. It's designed to give you instant context, especially if you stumble upon a source you've never even heard of.
And using it could not be easier. Just look next to almost any search result, and you'll see those 3 little dots. You just click on that, and it opens up this whole new layer of information.
So what do you see when you click? First, you get to see how the source describes itself, in its own words. But the real magic is in step 2. You see what other independent sites are saying about that source. This is so crucial for breaking out of an echo chamber. And finally, you get links to other articles on the same topic, so you can immediately get a wider perspective.
Okay, the next tool in our kit solves a really common problem. When a big story breaks, how do you know who actually did the original reporting? Well, that's where the highly cited label comes in. You see this happen all the time, right? A smaller news outlet does all the hard work, breaks a huge story, and then it gets picked up and repeated by all the bigger news organizations. This label helps you trace that story all the way back to its roots. It gives credit to the original source and shows you which reports are so important that other journalists are pointing to them.
The last part of our toolkit is all about using the incredible work of professional fact-checkers. Google now pulls verified info from these independent groups and puts it right into your search results.
So, where are you going to see this stuff? Well, it pops up in a few different places. If a topic is controversial, you might see fact-check articles show up in your results. Sometimes it's just a little snippet giving you context on a specific claim. And on Google News, there's a whole section for fact-check stories. There's even a separate tool called the Fact Check Explorer where you can go look up things yourself.
Okay, so we've got all these new tools, these new strategies, but what's the bottom line? What does this actually mean for journalists, for publishers, and most importantly, what's the payoff for you?
So here's the breakdown. For journalists, it means their original, hard work actually gets the credit it deserves. For publishers, well, it kind of forces them to be more credible. But for you, the person searching, it means empowerment. You're not just passively scrolling anymore. You now have the tools to be an active, critical judge of everything you read and share.
And that really brings us to our final thought here. Google has given us the toolkit, but it's up to us to actually use it. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. As these tools get better and more common, who do you think really holds the final responsibility for the truth we choose to believe? Thanks for joining me.